Gamers, gals, non-binary pals. You know how we said that Maxx is kind of one of the most broken cards to ever see print? Well, turns out they were like, yeah, fuck it. Let's make a new one. Let's just make a second Maxx. And we were given Molcharmi Fuolos. I'm pretty sure everyone and their moms could kind of infer that not only were the Molcharmi cards gonna be its own archetype because it mentions other Molcharmi effects, but also the fact that Molcharmi cards would kind of be built around the same thing, where it was just a hand trap archetype. So they all have the same shared second effect, where once during the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck so the number of your hand equals the number your opponent controls plus 6. So it does share the same text as Molcharmi Perilia, where you technically have to have a cost, and if you draw too many cards, your opponent only ends on like one monster, and you have 8 cards, you have to shuffle one back randomly. Oh no, the horror. But this one's a little bit better than the original Molcharmi. If you control no cards, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the deck and or extra deck, immediately draw 1 card. Holy fuck. This is so fucked as a card. So the big difference between like this and Perilia, we're just gonna call it Jellyfish and Bird. The thing that makes Jellyfish way worse as a card is because special summoning from the hand, it varies wildly from archetype to archetype. Like Tenpai only special summons from the deck outside of like Chandra, like normal Pydra, special Chandra, special Ginroku, that sort of deal. It's got decent applications versus the deck like Snake Eye, because you can go like, because they normal Snake Eye Ash, then they go to the Poplar, then they go the Diabell Star, but against certain archetypes, it's just not as good. Think of like Yubel. Yubel summons like 1 or 2 cards out of the hand at most. So sure, you get like your +1, but it's a lot less impactful relative to, you know, the archetypes where it's like super duper good versus. It's like okay versus Voiceless because they summon like maybe once or twice out of the hand. But the bird is definitely the word. I'm just saying, this card is literally just Maxx. Maxx saw like 90% of his usage against basically just summoning out of the extra deck, or you chained to a special summon, or you chained to like something that's special out of the deck, and you would just be like, well, better have Cold Buy or better have Ash. Or this card would lock people out of trying to commit to extra deck plays. Like sure, maybe they like stopped, like maybe they went into like their one Snake Eye Ash into Poplar or whatever, but they couldn't really try and extend into like Hida, they would extend to IP, they would extend it to Flambers, would extend it to Appaloosa, that sort of deal. This card is as close as we get to Maxx as Maxx is to be unbanning. Like sure, you can't special out of the fucking grave, you can't, like this card isn't gonna resolve out of like graveyard specials or whatever, but this is still a fucked card. This is still one of the most fucked cards of all time. Now I'm not saying it's exactly Maxx. This is the going second card of all time, but the thing is that going second tools are definitely being pushed to their absolute limits. And I'm not saying just going second tools, I'm saying like card design as a whole is being massively pushed in regards to how good can we make certain cards without just reprinting cards that are just straight up banned. This is a really good card, and I am like 60-40 that it is not a great idea, but I think it's nowhere close to Maxx. Player 1 has so many options to side auto wins, while player 2 getting one is not the end of the world, although I'd prefer it if it doesn't always skip the turn. I 100% agree with this sentiment in the sense where going second, having a blowout card isn't a necessarily bad thing. It is actually a good thing, because when you consider how many broken going first cards exist, think of like Skill Drain, Tikaboo, Rivalry, Goes In, Solemn Judgment, Solemn Strike, Anti-Spell Fragrance. Going second decks, getting like a droplet here and there, a Molcharmi Jellyfish, a Molcharmi Bird, isn't exactly the worst thing. And I think it is a good thing that going second decks are able to have a much stronger game plan when they are forced to go second. And they're not just like, I pray to God my opponent kind of turbo bricked. I'm guessing it's going to have the same stipulation as the other Molcharmi. Yep, it's the same thing. Having cards that just say like, skip your opponent's turn in 2024 and just be like, well, hope your opponent can OTK you, is very silly and strange, you know what I mean? Is the downside to these that you can only activate one Molcharmi card? Wrong! You can activate up to 1 additional Molcharmi card. By the way, these cards aren't once per turn. So if you get like Ash Blossomed on your Molcharmi Bird, you could just activate another one. And by the way, these stack. So if you double Molchummy Parolia someone and they normal summon like a Snake Eye Ash, you draw 2 cards. So just keep that in mind, you know what I mean? And yes, you can still use non-Molchummy hand traps. Everyone thought, because of like this weird shitty mistranslation when it first came out, because yugioh isn't like amazing, everyone thought that like, oh, you could only use one other non-Molchummy effect. Like you could only use Molchummy and then like the Ash Blossom. Like no, it just turned out it was like, yeah, fuck it. Just use whatever you want. Just can't stack more than one. This card will just produce a lot of non-games. Bad move, Konami. Yeah. 100%. Yu-Gi-Oh was in like this very weird state where, because the opening hands are relatively small, as well as the fact that going first gives you a massive swing in win rate relative to going second, as well as the fact that there are no mulligans, is a very, very frustrating thing. It makes for a very frustrating experience, because at least in Magic the Gathering, if you're against like Hogak, you can at least like forcefully mulligan yourself down to like 4 and get a Leyline of the Void, and then just like pray your opponent doesn't open like, you know, Force of Vigor or Assassin's Trophy or like 50 other cards. So you could at least, you know, have those options in your deck to dig for. But Yu-Gi-Oh, you get a 5-card hand where you don't get to mulligan. 5 cards is not a lot. Like the odds of you opening a particular card is like 33% at best. And if you don't draw the bird when you need it, or you don't draw the jellyfish when you need it, or your opponent opens the out for the bird, or your opponent doesn't have the out for the bird, or just like the super shitty rock, paper, scissors of does your hand trap be my hand trap, or does your hand be my hand, it makes for a very frustrating experience where games can feel extremely sacky and way more painful in Yu-Gi-Oh relative than in other games. Like Yu-Gi-Oh is a very painful game in that regards, and I'm not a fan of the introduction of cards that basically say, yeah, fuck it, do whatever you want. And there's no way for players to be like, okay, well, maybe I have a couple turns to like top deck out of this, or, you know, I can at least mulligan to try and dig for my out. Like, it just doesn't exist. It's fucked. Yeah, this one is just Maxi. Time for people to be annoying nonstop for a week, saying the new Molchummy is going to ruin the game. Everyone does this with everything Konami is doing lately, and we never stop talking about it. It's just annoying to always have something that needs to be a discourse topic, like, oh my god, can we go one day without dooming about the game dying? It's been like 2 months now. I get that it's very frustrating to be like an enjoyer of Yu-Gi-Oh and be like, oh, like it really is shitty that like everyone all of a sudden hates the game. And I said this in like a previous video. Yu-Gi-Oh currently is reaching this fever pitch of not only are we in an unfun format, but people are being priced out of cards. Events are basically nowhere to be found. Communication is still pretty shitty, even though we did get like the ban list communication, which basically just said, haha, this Nats format's gonna be fake as fuck, bro. Konami just is basically kind of jumping the shark in regards to how powerful of cards they are able to get away with printing. Really is just a very frustrating experience to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Like, I know people who were dead set, like grinding their asses off. All my friends, like Jesse, John, Adrian, they were all like grinding their asses off to go to nationals and try and like win the event. And now, just because of like info making the game even pricier, as well as the fact that now there's a $500 to $1,000 tax on whatever deck that you want to play for info, that might actually go up because pre-sale prices are kind of volatile like that. Usually they go down, but sometimes they go up. It really is this very frustrating dynamic to be a Yu-Gi-Oh player. If we're looking at Rage of the Abyss, the next 3 months of Yu-Gi-Oh are going to be like this arguably quote-unquote fake format, because outside of YCS Sacramento and YCS Niagara Falls, and Niagara Falls, Rage of the Abyss legal, so better buy your fucking Molchummy birds. I can understand why people are quitting this game. It is just way too expensive. There's no reward out of it. There's almost no redeeming quality to being a Yu-Gi-Oh player, as funny as that is to say. Like, there's a reason I don't make that many Yu-Gi-Oh videos anymore. It's not because like I hate Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever. It's because the game is like just on a relative dying trend. I don't have that much fun with it anymore. And I have to manage VTubers. Go, Mythos. Go stream more React videos, Aries. Anyways, let me know your guys' thoughts on the game as a whole, and if Maxx 3 is gonna make you quit or not. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.